going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, me and Tuck are going to show you how to grow apple trees in your own backyard, and we'll share some of the tips and tricks we've learned over the last 9 years. We'll also grab a huge apple harvest along the way. Let's go! For today's video, me and Tuck are going to be doing things a little different in regards to the how-to videos. I'm going to be involving more of my own personal experience for this video because, like I said, I've been growing apple trees for like almost 10 years now. I've grown them every way. From seed, like we have right here, the Prigioni apple. I planted this thing from seed maybe 7-8 years ago, and it's done well. I have transplanted pots, apple trees that I got in pots, varieties just from places like Home Depot or Lowe's. I've grown them that way, and I've also got bare root ones. So I've essentially grown apple trees almost every way that you can do it. First off, let's get the basics out of the way. Apple trees grow best in zones 4 to 9. And one thing you really need to think about when it comes to apple trees is they do need another pollinator. So when you're ordering trees, you want to make sure you're at least getting 2 trees, or you're going to need to get a tree that's a multi-grafted one. Different varieties that will pollinate one another. Another thing about apple trees, like almost all other fruit trees, is they like good, well-drained soil because they do not like sitting in standing water. No fruit trees really like that. With the basics aside, let's get into the meat of things. So when it comes to growing apple trees, in my opinion, the first most important thing you need to take into recognition and to make sure you do is to get a good variety and plant that the first time. So you need a variety that's going to do good in your particular circumstance. Every circumstance is a little different, but a good place to start is a good disease-resistant variety. Something like this right here. Here's the Williams Pride apple. You can see how beautiful these apples are, and we've got large production from this tree on just a 4-year-old tree. This is a great variety because it has good disease resistance, and it's also an early ripening one. So we have some apples right here on the ground. This fell on its own. It's nice and ready and ripe. As you can see, a beautiful apple right here. So this thing is ready in August, when some apples are ready in September, some in October. So because it ripens earlier, the apples seem to, have to be only on the tree for a shorter period of time, which I think makes it so it's easier to kind of get the harvest, especially when it's disease resistant too. Another variety that's excellent you can get into the ground is the Liberty apple. That's said to be the most disease resistant apple on the planet. So starting off with the right variety the first time will make a world of difference, a huge difference. I made this mistake when I first started. Let me bring you to a tree that I got in like 7 or 8 years ago that's not even doing well. I got the wrong tree in and I paid for it. Now, let's go back to a tree that I planted like 7 or 8, maybe 9 years ago. This is a Golden Delicious apple. This is one that I got from Lowe's, and it was a potted tree. So not a good variety that I really researched or anything. Not a good healthy tree. It was like a potted tree. It was root bound. So this is a perfect example of how you don't want to do it. The way I did things in the new food forest, where I'm getting way better production, how I'm getting huge apple harvest on just 4-year-old apples, this is how I did it. So what I did was I ordered bare root dwarf trees from good reputable companies. That's super important. You need to make sure you get it from a good company and that you research what variety you're getting, because this is the tree that's going to be in there for such a long time, and you're going to put into it that monetary investment. So you want to make sure you're getting the most out of it. What you don't want to do is, like what I have over here, is order trees from a company that isn't that reputable, because I ordered this tree from a company, again, that I didn't know much about, and this was supposed to be a Katy apricot tree. They sent me a Santa Rosa plum, and this tree it's not what I wanted. If I wanted a Santa Rosa plum, I could have just gotten one from Lowe's. So I wasted my time and my money because I didn't even realize that it was a plum until a few years after. So this was a complete waste. One company that I like to use a lot is Rain Tree Nursery. That's one that I have found to be pretty consistent. So I've gotten a good amount of trees from that place. After you've decided what varieties you want, you've chosen your trees, you've ordered them, and they've come in the spring, that's when I suggest most new gardeners plant their trees in the spring. I suggest you prep that fall before and then plant the tree in the early spring. What you want to do is get that bare root tree in as early as you possibly can, as soon as the ground can be worked. So once the ground can be worked, we want to dig that section out. We want to space our dwarf fruit trees about 10 to 15 feet apart when it comes to the apples. We want to dig into the soil, and we want to make sure that we're not burying the graft union, because this is a regular tree grafted onto a dwarf rootstock. So when you come down here, you'll notice the rootstock down here. You want to make sure that you're not burying that graft union. If you do, then the tree can root from the top part, and then it won't be a dwarf tree anymore. That's not what you want. So that's important when planting. After you have that tree planted, you want to make sure you come around and put a thick mulch around it. I suggest wood chips. They seem to work the best in my opinion, because young fruit trees, one of the biggest things that can hold them back is if they have to compete with weeds and grass. Grass growing under a young fruit tree will greatly hinder its growth and overall production because it just takes so much from that tree. So make sure you get that mulch down. Then you want to make sure you water that tree in, and for the next 3 months or so, come by and just give that tree some water. It's the first year that it's setting in, so just baby it along a little bit. Apple trees and pear trees like growing with a central leader when it comes to pruning, while trees like plums and peaches like growing to an open center. I'll show you an example of an open center tree after this. Here is a Williams Pride. This is growing to one central leader. As you'll notice, this main stem starts from the bottom and goes all the way to the top as just one central stem. This is growing like this because when we first put the tree in, we pruned it to grow like this and then staked it and kind of encouraged that tree to grow up the one stem, because this is the shape the tree kind of naturally wants to grow in, and this is the shape where it'll, provide the highest level of production. So that's why we wanted to encourage it to grow like that, as opposed to a peach tree, which I'll take you to right over here. This tree likes naturally growing to more of an open center. So when we planted this tree, we encouraged it to grow to that, shape. When you do this, you're really, guiding the trees along and saving some time and getting yourself quicker to production, not wasting growth on branches that are going to be taken out later. So you'll notice right here, when I first planted this tree, we cut that, this was the center leader, we cut it out and encourage it to grow into this open center. So making sure that you're pruning the trees correctly will help you to get earlier and better fruit. When it comes to fertilizing your apple trees, what I like to do is I like to come out in the spring and I'll pull back some of these wood chips, like right here. I'll pull back the wood chips and then I'll just put compost all around the base of the tree. Then after I do that, I'll put wood chips back around, around the base of the tree. I like to do this in the spring. I don't want to do this in the late fall, because if we fertilize too late in the fall, then we could try to encourage that tree to grow a lot, and then some of that growth could die off in the winter. So that's not what we want. We want the tree to blow up in explosive growth in the spring. That's really what we want. Now it's time to get into some first-hand issues that I've had with apples, and I want to talk about some of the things that I did to resolve the issues. So one of the first main problems that I had with apples and a bunch of my fruit trees was that I wasn't getting good pollination. And I thought that the reason I wasn't getting good pollination was because I didn't have enough good pollinators at first. Then when I added some more trees, I thought, well, this can't be the issue because I have enough pollinators, but I still wasn't getting good pollination. After that, I thought maybe that some of these blossoms were getting killed off by a late frost. So that's what I chalked it up to, because some days I would come out and the flowers would all be crumpled up and dead, and I couldn't really find out what the issue was. After a few years, it took longer than it should have, but I finally realized that my issue was that my flowers were getting brown rot on them. So essentially my flowers were getting brown rot, and then they were dying off because of that rot before the bees could come and pollinate them. So that's basically what was happening. To deal with this issue, what I did was, not something that I wanted to do, but something I had to do to make sure that I could ensure a harvest. I used a sulfur spray, a micronized sulfur spray, just in the spring. I came out and sprayed some of the flowers before they were, infected by that brown rot. And what this did was, it kept the brown rot from coming to those flowers and allowed the time for the bees to come in and pollinate them. When I sprayed the sulfur dust, it's right here, I'll grab it. When I sprayed this, I made sure to spray it only at night when there were no bees around, because this is not good for the beneficial insects. It's something I felt like I had to do though in order to get fruit. And I want to share this with you because I want to equip you with some of the tools that, in order to get apples. It's not 100%, completely natural like it would be in nature, but it's still definitely organic, and this has helped me immensely. The next big issue that I had when growing apples had to do with the pests. In particular, the plum curculio, which has devastated my garden and my fruit trees, or had for years, but I feel like I really have a hang on it now, and a lot of the other pests too, so that's why I want to share this with you. Hey Tuck, you want a cucumber, boy? Owen boy? Let's see if he wants a fresh cuke. Grab one here for him. And I'll talk about it more as he's snacking on one, because I saw him run around looking for something, because we just have so many cucumbers here. Owen boy, so we'll let him go do his own thing. But my issue was with the plum curculio mainly. The reason they were so devastating is because what they do is they come in, they cut into the fruit, and they lay their eggs in the inside. They can do it with hundreds of fruit, just one curculio too. So the way that I actually resolved this was I used something called surround kaolin clay. And this is important, they actually get the surround one because it's a super, super fine particle of kaolin clay. And they make this with a magnetic centrifuge to make it super, super fine. And this is the stuff you need. You don't want to use just regular kaolin clay because it won't work. This acts as a protectant on the fruit. So you basically spray it on the fruit when it's young, and then the bugs don't want to come for it. It kind of like, you know, it protects it basically. It doesn't, you know, hurt the bugs, but it deters them from going for it. What's super, super important with apples is that you start this spray, the kaolin clay, right after petal fall, when the fruit is very small. Because when the fruit's tiny, you have to make sure you have a good covering on them, because one plum curculio insect could hit so many apples when they're small like that. So if you stay on top of it when it's small and consistently spray, that's gonna form an incredible, you know, protecting layer. This kaolin clay also helps with things like sunburn too, so it's got multiple functions and uses. Another thing that's great about it too is if you were going to use the sulfur spray, you could mix the sulfur with the kaolin clay, and that actually helps the sulfur spray work better because I think it helps it like contact and stay on the tree better. So that kaolin clay works incredible. It's helped me with so many insects. It even helps with things like cucumber beetles too. Another thing that I started doing, which made a huge difference regarding the health of the fruit trees, keeping away the pests and disease, was I went around and I raked up all the pits in the fallen fruit from previous years. And now anything that falls to the ground, any fruit or anything diseased, I pick that up and I either throw it in the garbage or I burn it. I get it off the property. One of my big problems was, in the past, the plum curculio were laying their eggs in the fruit. A fruit like this, or even smaller, would fall to the ground. Then the plum curculio that was inside it would hatch, and the next generation would grow and then infect my other fruit. So I was essentially reseeding the plum curculio in my own garden, creating the perfect environment for them to thrive. So I was creating my own problems. After I learned this, I removed a lot of the fruit. The second generation of plum curculio hasn't shown up as much, and it's made a huge difference. So you want your garden to be tidy, not super neat, because it has to be a little natural, but you want it to be tidy, picking up any fallen or diseased fruit, removing any diseased branches or leaves, and getting them off the property. After I dealt with the issues of bad pollination, bugs and disease, and insects, I cleared a lot of that stuff up. I was still having one issue. My issue was that I was getting a lot of fruit on my trees. I mean, these things were absolutely loaded, but the fruit wasn't really ripening, and there was so much of it, it wasn't very good high quality. My issue was that I was being way too greedy. The thing that opened my eyes was when I had a Chijuro pear tree, a young pear tree, and it probably had about a month or two before it was ripe, and I left so many pears on it that the branch just snapped in half, it cracked. I lost all the fruit that was on it because I tried to get so much. After that, I said, I'm gonna start thinning. This year and the last year, I've been thinning more than ever, and look at the result. Look at the size of some of this fruit. As opposed to getting tiny little apples, I'm getting these big, monstrous apples like this. Here's the Williams Pride. We're just gonna twist it, let this thing come right off. And look how ripe and ready it is. Look at the size of it. So when you thin, you can allow the fruit, the tree, instead of focusing on 500 fruit, it can focus on 25, 30, 50 fruit and make those big and healthy and just incredible. It just makes sense. It's like if you're a parent or something, imagine trying to raise like 5 kids as opposed to trying to raise 150 kids at once. It just won't happen. You can't put your focus on what's best. So when you thin these trees, you kind of refocus the tree to put everything into those few fruit, to focus on those and to make those as high quality and delicious as possible. Let's crack into one of these though and see how it actually tastes. And you'll notice it's a little whiter than some of the stuff you'll see in the stores. That's just like the natural, bacteria and stuff that come on the fruit. You don't see this in the stores because you can't get them this fresh. You can't get them this ripe. There's an apple on the ground right here. This thing fell on its own to the ground. So there's no way you could get it in store this ripe. It just wouldn't ship as good. So when you grow this stuff yourself, you can actually eat them ripe. You can grow the varieties you want. They can be organic. You can know that, and you can get all the benefits that come from it. So, I mean, in my opinion, it's beautiful. Let's shine this one up though. This thing might look even better. Let's shine this apple up and see what it looks like. So we're just gonna take this, rub it in our shirt a little bit, and then see how much it shines. Man, that's absolutely beautiful. So apples are ready to harvest. The thing that'll tell you when to harvest is the taste. When you order the tree though, the company should give you an idea of about when they're ready to harvest. So like the Williams Pride, it says it's ready in about August time. And when it comes to early ripening apples like this one, you'll know they're starting to get ripe when the first ones start to fall from the tree, because the early ripening apples, they ripen over a lot longer period of time than the late ones. So the early ones will ripen over like a 3-week period of time, some ready earlier, some a little later, while some of your late apples, they could all ripen on the same day. So having the early apples is really fun because it extends that harvest and it kind of lets you let the apples trickle in a little bit instead of coming all at once. Let's finally bite into this baby though. Incredible flavor. No starchiness. That's one way you know it's ripe, when it doesn't have any starchiness in it. The thing, again, that will identify when an apple is ready is the taste. Nothing better than fresh apples from your own backyard. Now, I want to harvest the apples from this tree, and here's some apples that have just fallen from the ground the last couple days. I want to show you all this because this is what you can have from one tree in just 4 years. It's possible. I think everyone should be getting these into the ground. I want to harvest all these apples and show you them, but look at this one over here. Look how incredibly ripe and perfect this thing is. I'm gonna cut this baby right out. Man, look at that. Beautiful. Not every apple's perfect. A lot of them have little marks on them and stuff. Like, you know, this has a mark on it in here. Some of these have some marks. They're not 100% perfect, but they're great for eating. They're delicious, and it's also another little indication that they're actually organic because they have some bug bites. So we're gonna harvest all these apples. I'm gonna show you how much we have in the bucket. And then we're gonna bring them inside, start eating them. Because we've been eating some already, as many as we can kind of as they fall and stuff, but now we're gonna have a bunch of them here. Look at that apple. Whew, that thing is massive too. The size, beautiful. I feel so blessed and thankful. Let me just get the ladder right here, because some of these are up a little higher. Grab this one here, grab this one here, and then I'll come back to you when we have everything all harvested. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope me and Tuck encouraged you to get out there and to get some apple trees into the ground. And I hope we equipped you with maybe some tools and some skills and a little bit of knowledge to be able to successfully grow apples and eat them right from your own backyard, like right here. Look at this harvest. From a 4-year-old tree, that's just one tree right there. We have a lot more apple trees coming. So this is an incredible amount of high quality, super nutrient dense, organic, can't beat it food. In my opinion, this stuff is absolutely priceless. The reason it is because you can't buy this in the store. You can't get this ripe, this organic, this local. There's just no way to do it unless you do it yourself. So that's why me and Tuck make these videos. We want you guys to be growing yourself too. Before I let you go, I wanted to thank one of the new channel members, Tobias Malo. I hope I said your last name right, but thanks for contributing to the channel. It means a lot to me and Tuck to know that, you know, that you're putting out for it, and we want to thank you for that. I also want to thank everyone who's giving the new super thankses and contributing to the channel. That means a lot to us too. And you know, anything that we get from you guys, we're just going to reinvest it back into the garden and into growing more delicious apples. So we just wanted to thank you for everything. We also want to let you know to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to check out the merch down low. And remember, whenever you're on Amazon, start your shopping with our Amazon affiliate link. Tuck and James will be back at you again real soon. We out.